Hello. Um, Let me start by saying that I was a classic Doctor Who fan for 30 years, at least 30 years before the show returned in 2005. And so, like when Star Wars Episode 1 was released, my initial reaction was always going to be a positive one. Here was a show that I'd grown up with, that had been one of my special interests on and off for 30 years. And so I was never going to see the negatives on first viewing. And it seems that almost 10 million other viewers felt very much the same. And to be honest, my feelings haven't really changed a whole lot since that first viewing 21 years ago. Every time I rewatch it, I'm still full of positivity for that new beginning, or if you prefer, the continuation of the show that I've been in awe of since I was in nappies. I've watched it dozens, and dozens is an understatement, dozens of times since 2005, and I still find something about it that keeps me hooked. So I thought, 21 years later, I'd try to look back at that first series, starring Christopher Eccleston, obviously, Billy Piper, and a variety of well-known and soon-to-be-known faces, and I'd see just why it still captivates me. Its immediate appeal isn't in the character of the Doctor, or necessarily even the story. The hook here is definitely Rose Tyler. The show is presented to us from a very human perspective. All family, relationships and chips, a very soap-centric approach for which Russell T Davies was criticised by many at the time. But it's that focus that provides the show with its heart, and it's exactly what was needed to launch such a high-concept show to an early 2000s audience. That human thread that we follow throughout the series is the most important theme in this new iteration of the show. Rose's humanity, which so affects everything and everyone she comes into contact with, becomes even more vital as the series progresses. And the audience needed that, to be drawn in with what they knew already, to be engaged by the characters before they could accept that the world, and yes, the stakes really were that high even in episode 1, was in danger. Because that's the Doctor's role in all of this. He is the saviour. No matter what else he is, and he's so many other equally as important things, the Doctor is the protector of worlds and people. And Eccleston's Doctor, whilst not the archetypal dandy in fancy dress that so many fans had come used to, was exactly that, a protector. He's survived something, a war that's damaged him and left him on his own, and he's still driven by the need to help others. It's there in the dialogue, it's there in his costume, and it's there more than anywhere else in the way that Eccleston plays him. There were lots of comments at the time about what people called his gurning, fake smiles, false laughter that didn't necessarily seem in character or in keeping with the Doctors of the past. But what we shouldn't forget is that this isn't the Doctor we left at the end of Survival. It's not the one who just kissed Grace and defeated the Master in the TV movie. This was a Doctor who's not had proper human contact for quite some time. He hasn't, or so it seems, travelled with a companion for a long while. And the humanity, see, there it is again, that a friend lends to the Doctor is gone. He remembers what it was like. You can see he tries to act up to it when he's interacting with other characters. But he never quite gets it right. And that's not a flaw in Eccleston's performance. That is Eccleston's Doctor. He's also trying to hide from who he's become. We learn across the series more of what's happened to him, but even here in this first episode, it's clear that he feels guilt and shame for what has happened to him. He can't talk about it. He doesn't want to remember it. He wants to carry on as if nothing's changed. He's masking, and as an autistic man of a certain age, I could go on about that for an age. But he's not actually doing it particularly well. His attempts at humour, those silly smiles, that gurning, they're all hallmarks of someone who's trying to present a mask of normality, but failing. This is a Doctor who has lost touch with his humanity, who's begun to revert to that cold, Hartnell-esque type of Time Lord, but who remembers the warmer, better days. When Rose says,
"You were right, you are alien,"
it's because he has none of the finer feelings for those, particularly Mickey and Jackie, around him, and he dismisses them as if they're not even important to him. He's only really interested in the big picture, in being the protector of the wider planet. And that is this series arc. Forget Bad Wolf, more of which we find out later in the series, but the healing of the Doctor is this series' overarching theme. And who's going to help him with that process? Well, there's a reason the episode is called Rose. I had my doubts about Billie Piper when she was first announced as the new companion. I hadn't seen her act. I only knew her as the teen pop sensation Billie. And I was a bit worried that it was going to be a case of stunt casting, much as the late 80s Who had been plagued by. It was more than pleasantly surprising then that her performance in the first episode was so good. She held her own against the more experienced Eccleston, bouncing off him, challenging him, and in all honesty, proving herself the real saviour of the storyline. Without her, would the Doctor have even survived? And that's exactly how it needed to be for the show, for this new generation to survive. The Doctor is a huge personality, a character that everyone knows and expects to be the hero, but Rose was the real focus of the show. How would you, because she was the everyman, cope with an alien falling into your life and wanting you to travel the stars with them? Everyone thinks they would be a Rose, which is the point of the character, and Billie lives up to that expectation perfectly. She was the Doctor's rock, almost from the moment they met. He even hints at that within minutes of their meeting. You can tell just how impressed he is by her reasoning that the Auton attack is actually students.
Because to get that many people dressed up and being silly, they got to be students.
That makes sense. Well done.
She is that humanity that I've mentioned, and her performance, it's not showy, but it's definitely solid, was perfect for the character. Not everything about this episode, however, is quite so positive. And my criticisms aren't necessarily ones that I didn't notice at the time. The story itself proves to be somewhat slight. The Autons have come to take over the Earth. There's a bit of violence, and then the Doctor and Rose save the day. Yes, there's lots of lovely character building. The relationship between the Doctor and Rose blossoms, and we get a very real insight into the life that Rose has been living. And through Mark Benton's well-pitched Clive, we learn something about the Doctor's legacy on Earth. But not a lot actually happens. You know, that's not really a problem, because the episode is a scene setter for the upcoming series. It just feels somewhat lacking. It tells us what we need to know about the premise. It introduces us to the characters and to the conceit of the time-travelling spaceship. So we're good to go, I suppose. My biggest criticism still is the tone. There are points at which it's quite dark. I don't have a problem with it being dark particularly, but there are other points at which it's high camp. And again, I don't have a problem with that. The issue I have is the balance between the two. It's clear now that the show is trying to pull in a family audience, but there are just too many elements that suggest that the director, and you know, I'm assuming it's the director, has dumbed down parts of the show, thinking that is what makes it for the family. The burping bin. Auton Mickey.
What are you going to do tonight? I fancy pizza.
Pizza. Pizza.
Noel Clarke's generally over-the-top performance. It all feels out of place, maybe perhaps even a little bit forced. And the reason I say it's the director is because before Doctor Who, Keith Boak was known for his drama productions, Boak, and he didn't really have much experience of family shows. His direction in this episode is mixed. The tracking shot from Rose's flat to the TARDIS, which leads to Eccleston's Earth revolving speech, oh, gorgeous, brilliant speech.
I can feel it. The turn of the Earth. The ground beneath our feet is spinning at 1,000 miles an hour.
That shot is stunning in its simplicity. The scenes in the basement of Henrik's department store are tense and really set the atmosphere for what you want as a tense opening episode.
Wilson, I've got the lottery money. Wilson, you there? I can't hang about because they're closing the shop. Wilson.
But the end of the episode, for me, is something of a muddle. There are too many cuts to scenes where nothing's really happening, and a rather abrupt decision by Rose to not go and then to go with the Doctor. It left me just a little bit cold. Don't get me wrong, I was ready to come back the following Saturday to continue my journey with the Doctor, and I did understand why Rose had chosen to go with him. What I didn't understand was why she might have chosen not to go. I mean, Mickey certainly wasn't a compelling argument. It's there in the dialogue. Thanks. What for? Exactly. And whilst her bond with Jackie had been shown to be tight, it was clear how much Rose was looking for a way out. I think not wanting to go with the Doctor, she was never really serious about that, was she? And so 2005 Doctor Who started with a bang, but one with qualifiers. A tone that needed settling. A story that wasn't quite so slight, and definitely more travelling in time, please. One of which was corrected for me in the next Time trailer. Straight off to the future. Far away into the future. Fabulous. And the 7 days I had to wait would be wished away. I'm so glad that 21 years later I can just skip straight on to the end of the world. See you next time.